women are permanent prey every single time they leave the house because of all of these liberal.
And why do you think?
Girl Field,
Okay.
Girl Boss.
And why
Netflix,
do you think?
Piers Morgan.
And what? Okay. And why do you think? And Andrew Tate, why do you think it is that people think you're a misogynist?
Nobody thinks that.
From the very beginning, something about the entire situation felt wrong. Questions began to rise about the way Charlie Kirk's shirt moved at the moment of impact. Observers noted that it appeared to shift unnaturally, suggesting the possibility of body armor causing a deflection. However, that explanation did not satisfy everyone. Eyewitnesses were interviewed, and many stated that the direction of movement seemed inconsistent. Some insisted the shots came from left to right, while others swore they came from the opposite side. The conflicting statements created confusion and cast doubt on the official narrative. The story being presented to the public appeared incomplete, leaving people wondering if the truth was being hidden or if something crucial had been missed. Soon after, authorities cleared the entire scene, paving over the ground and removing any physical trace of the event. To the public, it felt abrupt and unsettling. Was it an attempt to preserve the area or to conceal something? Whatever the reason, the decision intensified public suspicion. Each small inconsistency, from the direction of movement to the cleanup of the site, added to a picture that no longer made sense. What mattered most was not the precision of the shot or the distance involved, but the pieces of truth that seemed to vanish between frames. Just as the controversy surrounding the incident seemed to reach its peak, another voice entered the discussion: Piers Morgan. The outspoken British commentator reignited the debate with his sharp analysis and refusal to accept official explanations without question. He examined every detail of the case, from the timeline to the inconsistencies in the released reports, suggesting that the narrative did not fully add up. According to him, the reconstruction presented by authorities appeared too polished, too convenient, almost rehearsed. It gave the impression that something vital was being left unsaid. The most unexpected twist in the unfolding debate came when Piers Morgan mentioned Charlie Kirk's wife. Her reaction, marked by remarkable composure, quickly became the center of public attention. Some interpreted her calmness as a sign of deep psychological shock, while others saw it as overly controlled, even calculated. Piers observed that her silence and measured behavior sparked a wave of speculation that spread rapidly online. Was her restraint an act of self-preservation in grief, or did it suggest something hidden beneath the surface? For Morgan, the central question was not merely about what had happened that day, but why so many people remained silent afterward. As discussions grew louder, public opinion split into opposing sides. Many saw this as one of the most shocking political events in decades, perhaps even in half a century. For a nation that had witnessed its share of dramatic moments, this still stood apart. It became more than just a tragedy. It was a turning point that changed how people viewed power, trust, and truth in the modern world. The Charlie Kirk incident sent tremors across political and media landscapes, and within hours, it transformed from a breaking story into a symbol of public doubt and media mistrust. Millions watched the footage circulate across social media platforms. In that instant, the story ceased to be only about one person. It became a reflection of society's relationship with truth in the digital age. Amid the chaos, Piers Morgan's entrance reshaped the conversation. Known for his fearlessness, he voiced the questions few others dared to ask, drawing both admiration and criticism. In a conversation with his son, he expressed determination not to let fear silence him. He announced his upcoming appearance on Meghan's show in Miami in November, affirming his belief that courage in speech must prevail over fear. His statement ignited a new wave of debate. The focus shifted from what happened to how much freedom people still had to talk about it. Morgan declared that freedom of speech forms the foundation of democracy and that losing it would mean losing the right to truth itself. His passionate defense of open dialogue resonated with audiences on both sides of the political divide. Whether they supported or opposed Kirk's views, they understood the underlying fear, losing the ability to speak without censorship. Charlie Kirk, known as a conservative activist and political commentator, had died in front of a live audience during a public event. The moment was captured on multiple videos and spread rapidly online. But instead of providing closure, the images raised a storm of questions. The official narrative struggled to withstand scrutiny. Piers Morgan questioned the clarity of security procedures at the event, especially given Kirk's public prominence and prior warnings about safety threats. Why, he asked, was a location hosting a figure of such status so lightly secured? Other observers echoed his concerns, noting discrepancies between the footage and the official statements. Some speculated that the investigation concluded far too quickly, as though a decision had been made before all evidence had been analyzed. Piers Morgan did not directly accuse anyone of wrongdoing, but he highlighted a troubling contradiction. If the truth is truly being pursued, he asked, why does it seem as though there is a rush to end the discussion? The information storm grew stronger when Morgan remarked on how swiftly press briefings, viral posts, and news updates blended together, blurring the line between verified fact and speculation. What began as a personal tragedy had evolved into a national test of free expression, information control, and political division. Morgan hinted that the official account might not tell the full story. In later broadcasts, he referred to witness testimonies that conflicted sharply with one another. One witness claimed the sound originated from the left. Another was equally certain it came from the right. Such inconsistencies, he argued, should have prompted deeper investigation rather than quick closure. These contradictions soon became the heart of an online conspiracy storm. On platforms like Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit, users meticulously dissected each frame of the footage, analyzing sound, light, and crowd reactions. Every subtle movement was treated as a potential clue, transforming social media into a massive, open-source investigation. However, Morgan's greatest concern was not the growing debate, but the silence that followed the cleanup of the site. Within hours, the scene had been cleared, equipment removed, and the entire area disinfected as though the event had been a minor disturbance. To many, this abrupt sanitization felt like an attempt to erase evidence. People began to fear that the truth might have been swept away along with the dust. Piers Morgan summarized this disturbing sequence as silence covered by action, an unsettling description that captured the mood of uncertainty. The speed with which the site was repaved and reopened only deepened suspicion. To the public, it seemed as if vital pieces of the puzzle had vanished. And so, questions lingered. Had the truth been lost in the rush to move forward, or was it deliberately hidden? No one could say for certain. To uncover the inconsistencies surrounding the incident, Piers Morgan decided to consult specialists in forensics and long-range shooting. Among them was Robert O'Neill, a former Navy SEAL known for his deep expertise in precision marksmanship and tactical analysis. O'Neill stated candidly that a shot from 200 yards was not a major challenge for someone with basic sniper training. However, for an ordinary civilian with no background or experience in handling such weapons, achieving that level of accuracy was nearly impossible. This single observation directly contradicted the official claim that the suspect had no military experience or advanced firearms training. O'Neill further explained that after reviewing the footage and photographs circulated online, he noticed something troubling. The marks on Charlie Kirk's clothing and the movement of the fabric during impact did not match the direction of the bullet described in the official report. According to him, this suggested that the bullet's path and the shooter's actual position might have been different from what authorities presented. Even the slight motion of Kirk's shirt, seemingly insignificant to the untrained eye, did not conform to the expected physical response given the claimed direction of impact. For O'Neill, the evidence pointed toward a much more complex scene than what was initially described. Piers Morgan drew a powerful conclusion from these expert analyses. The story, he said, remained incomplete. While some answers could be inferred, the broader truth appeared to have been buried beneath speculation and silence. The question that lingered in the air was whether the public had been given an oversimplified, possibly manipulated version of events. Was there truly only one shooter? Did the bullet's trajectory align with the official explanation? And above all, why had the investigation been shut down so quickly? As Morgan continued his analysis, he shifted focus from the physical evidence to public perception. In the days that followed, attention turned sharply toward Charlie Kirk's wife, who found herself at the center of an emotional storm. Her interviews and public appearances were shared across every major social media platform. Many praised her composure, describing her as a symbol of strength in the face of grief. Others, however, believed her calmness seemed too deliberate, almost staged. Her smallest gestures, every glance, every measured pause, were scrutinized by millions. Internet users began to dissect her tone, her expressions, even the rhythm of her breathing, searching for hidden meaning behind her behavior. Piers Morgan did not accuse her of anything, but he warned that the frenzy had spiraled out of control. In an age where video clips can be edited and reposted within seconds, silence or restraint can easily be mistaken for coldness or calculation. What once might have been seen as dignity in grief was now being interpreted through a digital lens that distorted everything. The scrutiny intensified when people began to examine her background. Her past involvement in beauty pageants, connections with political circles tied to Turning Point USA, and her frequent appearances with powerful public figures were all dragged into the conversation. These details, which should have belonged solely to her personal history, were instead woven into elaborate online theories. Piers Morgan emphasized that this reflected a much larger problem: the way social media now shapes and distorts public understanding of truth. He observed that the digital world can magnify both honesty and deception, often blurring the line between the two. When everyone is shouting, he noted, the noise can drown out the one voice that matters, the evidence. His words resonated across television and online discussions as a warning against the chaos of modern media. Within minutes of Kirk's death, the internet had exploded with speculation. Online forums, podcasts, and YouTube channels filled with conflicting claims and theories. Some insisted the event had been a professional operation executed with precision and planning. Others believed it was part of a wider, covert political conspiracy involving individuals or groups with hidden agendas. As the digital storm intensified, the boundaries between verified fact and creative fiction grew increasingly faint. Small fragments of unconfirmed information, cell phone clips, anonymous posts, secondhand accounts, were stitched together into complete yet unreliable narratives. In just a few hours, conjecture replaced concrete evidence, and the Internet's collective imagination began to construct an entirely separate version of reality. Commentators referred to this as one of the defining dangers of the digital age, the ability for anyone with a phone and an opinion to become an investigator or a self-proclaimed expert. What once required rigorous verification could now spread instantly, amplified by emotion and repetition. Social media was no longer a neutral platform for sharing news. It had become a stage where perception replaced proof, and where feelings often outweighed facts. On platforms like TikTok, X, and YouTube, analysis videos gained millions of views. Every frame of footage was enlarged, replayed, and dissected. Each echo, light reflection, or shadow became the subject of new evidence claims. Titles such as Hidden Angle Revealed or The Truth They Don't Want You to See dominated feeds, creating an endless loop of curiosity and doubt. The more attention the story received, the more new theories appeared. In this environment, official investigators struggled to reclaim control over the narrative. Even well-known public figures joined the debate. Joe Rogan, known for his direct conversational style, openly questioned the timeline presented by authorities, suggesting that something felt inconsistent. Candace Owens, meanwhile, viewed the tragedy as part of a broader societal and political issue. An example of how polarization and media manipulation can fuel public distrust. Although neither provided evidence to support their claims, their opinions spread widely, adding fuel to an already raging fire. Media analysts referred to this as the digital resonance effect, describing how statements made by influential voices can amplify unverified claims simply through repetition. A theory becomes more believable not because it holds truth, but because a famous person said it aloud. Piers Morgan himself had once summed up this phenomenon with a striking observation. We live in an era where rumors travel faster than facts, and when the truth finally catches up, no one remembers what to believe. The incident surrounding Charlie Kirk had by now transcended its original meaning. It was no longer viewed merely as a political tragedy, but as a mirror reflecting the deeper crisis of modern information culture. It showed how society consumes, distorts, and debates truth in an age of instant communication. The story demonstrated how, in a world driven by emotion and algorithms, information could be both weaponized and misunderstood. Further confusion arose when reports emerged that the weapon involved had once belonged to the suspect's grandfather, a family heirloom passed down through generations. This revelation reignited national debate about gun ownership and regulation. Lawmakers and analysts questioned whether current laws were strict enough, especially in cases where firearms were inherited without proper registration or oversight. Critics argued that when weapons are passed down informally, responsibility becomes blurred. If such an heirloom is later used in a public tragedy, who should be held accountable? Gun rights supporters, on the other hand, claimed that the real issue lay not with the weapon, but with individual responsibility and mental stability. The public was sharply divided. Emotional arguments on both sides flooded television panels and social media discussions. Meanwhile, conspiracy theories continued to multiply. Some claimed that the weapon had been planted to frame the suspect. Others suggested that the incident was part of a broader covert campaign designed to manipulate political narratives. Piers Morgan described this growing trend as the belief mirror effect. When public trust in institutions erodes, he said, people begin to interpret every detail through suspicion. In a world where confidence in authority is fading, dramatic explanations often feel more satisfying than complex truths. When reality is confusing, he said, people believe whatever helps them make sense of it, even if it's wrong. And perhaps that, he suggested, is the most sobering lesson of all, that in the age of instant news and endless connectivity, truth itself is not merely something we find, but something we must actively protect. In the midst of growing uncertainty, forensic scholar Joseph Scott Morgan stepped forward with a calm but urgent warning. As speculation flooded the internet, he emphasized that any theory lacking solid proof was a dangerous double-edged sword. Without tangible evidence, he explained, public debate turns into guesswork, and guesswork can distort justice. Forensics, Morgan reminded audiences, is a science rooted in observation, not emotion. Without verified data or physical reports, all that remains are assumptions dressed up as fact. His words struck a deeper chord, touching on an issue larger than the event itself, the absence of transparency from authorities. That void created what experts called an information vacuum, a space in which rumors thrive and misinformation multiplies. When people are denied clarity, imagination quickly replaces certainty, and everyone begins to craft their own version of truth. Piers Morgan echoed this thought, saying the Charlie Kirk case was more than a political shock. It had become a massive social experiment in how humans process information in the digital age. What made this particular event extraordinary, he argued, was not just its tragedy, but the way it was reinterpreted thousands of times through the prism of social media. Each short video, podcast, and viral post became a tiny piece of a fragmented reality. Every angle of the footage, every sound, and every witness statement was analyzed frame by frame. What began as a tragic moment evolved into a collective obsession, a hunt for hidden meanings that might not even exist. Joseph Scott Morgan warned that this obsessive focus on microscopic details can blind people to the larger picture. The more individuals dig into speculation, the further they drift from real evidence. Searching for mysteries in every frame is not the same as finding the truth. Science doesn't depend on imagination, he said. It depends on repeatable results. While he and other forensic experts quietly examined every bit of available data, ballistics, sound patterns, and the psychological profile of the suspect, the public's impatience grew louder. Because the official reports remained undisclosed, the silence was interpreted as concealment. When the truth is withheld, people invent their own. Analysts labeled this reaction information gap syndrome. When verified facts are scarce, dramatic stories naturally fill the void. And in today's social media climate, sensationalism always travels faster than careful analysis. Another commentator remarked that truth in the 21st century is no longer something waiting to be discovered. It has to be guarded. Joseph Scott Morgan agreed, warning that while evidence never lies, people often misunderstand it. In a world where everyone has access to a global microphone, truth becomes fragile. The danger, he added, lies not just in those who spread falsehoods, but in the crowd willing to believe them without question. His closing message was chilling but necessary. The allure of mystery must never overshadow the pursuit of truth. The most dangerous force is not the liar, but the mass of believers who accept the lie without proof. It was a reminder that in an era obsessed with likes, clicks, and views, the real casualty is patience, the foundation of any genuine investigation. As the digital storm intensified, discussions about mental health, political extremism, and the growing influence of online echo chambers began to dominate the public stage. Across forums, talk shows, and podcasts, people analyzed and argued about what had gone wrong. Yet amid this flood of commentary, only a few could still distinguish between verified information and emotional speculation. Media experts began referring to this as the age of cognitive dissonance, a time when multiple versions of the same event exist simultaneously, and individuals choose whichever version feels right rather than what is true. Every comment, every video clip was retold, reinterpreted, and reshaped until it no longer resembled the original. When millions of people share a distorted narrative, it begins to feel real, even when it lacks evidence. Joseph Scott Morgan once summarized the problem in a single sentence: when the truth is unclear, the most confident voice becomes the most convincing. That line captured the essence of the crisis. As information travels faster than ever, accuracy becomes the first casualty. Digital echo chambers, spaces where users hear only opinions that confirm their own, have turned the internet into an ecosystem of belief and disbelief. In these closed loops, an anonymous post can go viral overnight, while official statements are dismissed as untrustworthy simply because they sound too cautious. Tragedy becomes content, and analysis becomes entertainment. With the rise of artificial intelligence and editing tools, people can now reconstruct entire events according to their own perspectives. Each viewer creates a personal version of reality, believing it to be the truth. The internet, while providing access to an endless ocean of knowledge, also opens a door to confusion on a global scale. Every tweet, every image, and every headline becomes a fragment of a vast puzzle, but the full picture remains distorted by bias and emotion. In this digital marketplace, truth no longer competes with lies on equal ground. It competes with the more engaging story. One media scholar described this crisis as the slide of trust. He explained that modern audiences no longer question only what is wrong. They question everything, even what is right. As confidence in institutions, journalism, and science erodes, each person turns into their own judge, jury, and investigator. Paradoxically, that independence makes truth more fragile than ever before. Piers Morgan, reflecting on this trend, said that the internet has made people feel like experts, but in doing so, it has made them forget how to ask questions. The tragedy of Charlie Kirk, he suggested, was not only a reflection of one man's fate, but a mirror showing what society has become. An arena where information is traded like a commodity, emotion becomes a form of persuasion, and truth itself struggles to be heard beneath the noise. In this relentless swirl of opinion, one central question remains: what can we actually believe? That, Morgan said, is the paradox of our time. A world overflowing with information, but starved for trust. Investigators and journalists have since urged the public to slow down, verify facts, and learn to separate evidence from interpretation. In a culture where any post can trend within minutes, speed is not a strength, it is a hazard. Truth does not shout. It takes time, cross-examination, and courage to stand against collective emotion. Media analysts have observed that when a story goes viral, emotion always moves faster than reason. That pattern makes society vulnerable to persuasive but unverified claims. The desire for instant answers often causes people to see what they want to see instead of what actually happened. Investigators continually remind audiences to follow the evidence, not the noise. The story of Charlie Kirk, seen from any angle, has grown far beyond the event itself. It has become a reflection of how modern society interacts with truth, where fact and speculation coexist within the same headline. Today, everyone carries their own version of the story, shaped by algorithms, bias, and emotion. That makes truth, the one thing meant to unite people, the hardest thing to find. The lesson is not about who is right or wrong, but about how we, as a society, consume information. The internet has transformed tragedy into a form of entertainment, and in this transformation, accuracy often fades behind dramatic storytelling. Real truth does not demand sensational headlines or edited montages. It reveals itself quietly, through patience, verification, and humility. The wisest question to ask, Morgan suggested, is not what happened, but who is telling this story, and why do they want me to believe it? Because in a world overwhelmed by noise, the most powerful person is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the one who listens carefully enough to recognize reality. So the story of Charlie Kirk stands as both a tragedy and a lesson. A warning about what happens when technology amplifies every voice except that of truth itself. In the end, it reminds us that free speech and free thought carry responsibility. And perhaps the only way to preserve truth in the modern age is to defend not just the right to speak, but the discipline to question what we hear.